Hello, hello. How are you, Sharon? Hi, Steve. Great to see you. Chu, lovely to see you. Well, welcome everybody. We are right on time, so I'm going to get started and leave plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions. Welcome to the She Leadership webinar series, where we deep dive into the leadership and life skills, tackling different aspects of the wheel of life, and I'm sure you've all heard of the wheel of life, to help our audience build knowledge and inspire you to examine not only what you think, but how you think about what you think. I'm really looking forward to tonight's discussion on DISC and what this offers for all of us in business and life. Not only just in terms of how we get along, but most interestingly for me, around the communication skills and how we create fulfilling relationships, both at home and in the workplace. So before we get into it, I'd love to give you a chance to say hello. So feel free to turn on your camera if it's not on, and to take yourself off mute and say hello. Let us know where you're dialing in from and what you'd like to get out of today's session. So go ahead, Steve. I see you're off mute.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Steve Clark. Friday's off. So I work with emerging leaders in family businesses, and I really haven't used a lot of personality profiling in the past, even though I know it's been around. So I think I need to incorporate it into what I do. So my arm has been twisted to do that not by Jenny, by other colleagues. And so, yeah, I'm all ears and eyes open to learn tonight.
Yeah, Jenny, it's Narelle.
Narelle, hello.
Hey, yeah, I'm really interested in two parts, just the personal development. But the second is learning how to work with clients in a different way, in a better way.
Okay, great. Is there anything in particular you'd like us to focus on?
Yeah, the difficult client, because sometimes I get impatient and think, I've had enough.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Great, Narelle. We'll definitely tackle that.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
Hi, Jenny. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead, Sharon.
Lovely to see everyone. And I am familiar with DISC. I've actually done a DISC profile on myself before, or had that done. But I use a different tool in my business. I use Berkman. So I'm just interested to sort of get a little bit more information around DISC. I know a few of my clients mention DISC and talk about it. So it's sort of a comparing kind of situation for me tonight.
Rocket, come on.
Great. Well, feel free to let us know at the end, you know, what are some of the distinctions that you've made or some of the things that you've found for yourself. Lovely to have you here. Jeff.
Well, I want to try and understand what this thing is. I filled it in that form you gave me this today, and I end up with a high C. And I just don't understand it, and how could I apply it to anyone else, because I had so much trouble filling it in myself, judging myself. And how could I use it on anyone else? This is my problem.
Okay, great. So
trying to understand
part of today's discussion is being able to determine, just through a conversation, how we might be able to tell what aspect of the DISC profile somebody falls into.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Angela.
Hi, I've done an extended DISC profile previously, and when I did this, it was the same. I enjoy it because once everybody knows where they fit on the DISC, is you can actually jokingly say, I'm a high C, and so it then opens up this communication to everyone else and allows people to know that they've got to give you more detail and a bit more time, and you'll come along. And then if someone's an I, you know that you've got to invite them to the party, and they've absolutely got to be there because they're going to be all flamboyant. And so I think that's interesting when you begin to have a lot of understanding for each other of what they need to be communicated to with for inclusion. So that's me.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Just give me a sec. I've just got a few issues with my sound. Let me just get that sorted. I'll be right with you. All right, would Virginia, can you just say hello for me and so I can check the sound?
Good evening.
Excellent. All right, one more time.
Good evening.
Excellent, thank you. We did do the sound earlier, but you know, the way things go. Sharon, hello. Thank you for joining us. We were just going through, just quickly before I introduce Virginia, what you might like to get out of tonight's session. Or something you'd like to learn. Is there anything you'd like to share? Or you're on mute. Yes, you, Sharon Hawthorne. Yes.
I was just really interested to join, so that's why I was last minute, because I actually registered for a different one by mistake, so I went into the wrong meeting by mistake, so I'm a little bit frazzled. I've just got the boys settled with their dinner, and I was just really interested to see what people have to say. That's really why I joined today.
All right, well, lovely. Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, well, let me introduce the incredible Virginia Walker, who's joining us tonight as the co-host for today. Virginia Walker, for those of you that don't know, is a mentor, author, and speaker. Her book, Manage and Overcome Unsupportive or Toxic Business Environments. And isn't there so much of that these days? Virginia is driven by a passion to help people create workplaces where people learn, grow, and thrive. A passion that was inspired at the age of 16 when she worked as a trainee accountant in a small firm that then transformed her life. Virginia runs a business called Thrive on Purpose, where she works with business owners and executives, enabling their workplaces to thrive. Now, I'm going to read a list of accreditations that Virginia has, and I'm just completely blown away by this. But she is a fellow chartered accountant with the, well, I've messed this up, but a Chartered Institute of Certified Accountants, certified practicing accountant she is. She's part of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. She's also accredited with the People Smart Disc Interpretation Method, and is also a certified Mind Valley coach. Wow, that's amazing. Virginia's completed over 200 hours of certified training in matrix therapies and archetypal coaching. Now, what you might not know about Virginia is she's also an avid golfer and has recently taken up surfing as part of her profession, as if she has time. So Virginia, welcome. It's really lovely to have you with us tonight. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you for that wonderful welcome, which I wrote. It's lovely to be here with you. As Jenny said, I have a passion for workplaces where people thrive. And so what I would like to do this evening is share the DISC tool. As many of us have experienced over our careers, there are lots of tools that we can use. And they all have their pluses and minuses. What I love about DISC is at one level, it's very simple, and another level, it can be quite sophisticated. So what we'll try to do this evening is get at least a common level of understanding and ability to use it. And then for some, take it a bit further. So without any more ado, we'll get going. I just wanted to check that each of you have had a chance to look at, preferably print the assessment, the mini-me assessment that was sent out, because that will be helpful in terms of getting insight into your own preferred behaviors. Anybody not?
It's possible that Adrian might not have, so I'm just gonna pop that in the chat now.
And so Sharon said she hadn't either. So yeah, thanks, Nick.
Sorry, I'm very last minute. Sorry, Virginia.
It's okay.
I'll have a look at that another time.
no, it's part of what we're doing this evening. So we'll see if you get some time to do that. So I'm a very practical person, right? As you heard, I left school at 16 and I got into an accounting office and I absolutely loved it. I know you're not supposed to love auditing and accounting, but it was an amazing environment. And so starting that way meant I learned as I studied, and I studied as I learned. So for me, it's all about are the tools that you're working with, are they useful to you? You know, do they deliver anything? It's all very well understanding them, but are they shifting the game in terms of the outcomes that you want? So today we're going to look about understanding your natural style and strengths and others' behavioral preferences and how to work well with others. So what shapes our personality? There's a number of things. If our parents believed in speaking up and everybody being heard, do you think that might be something we take on board? Yeah. And if we're told to be quiet and speak when we're spoken to, do you think that's going to influence us? Yes. Right. So our behaviors come from, partly from that very foundational world that we lived in our earlier years. And what got rewarded? I got rewarded for being polite. And when I was a young adult, everybody used to say to me, "You're so polite." And I was like, well, could be worse, could be a lot worse. And then we've also got cultural, community, economic, and family environment. So was it okay to be noisy at the dinner table? Was it okay to play music loudly? All of those things influenced what we think normal behavior is. We also interpret our childhood experiences in ways that sometimes don't suit us later in life, as I'm sure anybody who's done a little bit of personal development will understand. So we have to be mindful that our experience is our experience, that's fine, but other people have different experiences. So our personality comes from it starts with our perceptions. So our perceptions are what we think is right and wrong and appropriate in the world. We then have experiences that we apply those perceptions to. We then make a judgment. So if I use that example of being really loud and noisy, if our perception is that that's fine, and we experience being in a very loud team environment where we're quite comfortable, our judgment is that's a good team. You can imagine the opposite. If somebody's perception is that being really loud in a team environment is quite inappropriate and we should be quiet and listen to everybody's views before we make a decision, then that experience and that judgment is going to be quite different, isn't it? So from all these experiences or judgments, we form our belief and mindsets. And do they stay fixed? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah, because we will have experiences that we say, oh, that didn't work. I'm going to shift how I think about that. All of that influences our behavior, how we show up in the world. So we often see behavior when we make a judgment. So if we see someone looking like this, what are we thinking? Just come off mute and shout out. It's a small group. What does this say to you? Come on, we need a bit of interaction tonight.
Angry.
Angry, yeah. Anything else?
Maybe frustrated.
Right. And do we know I'm angry or frustrated?
No.
No. What are we actually doing when we say we're angry and frustrated?
Reflecting on our previous experiences.
Right. We're saying what I normally experience when I see someone like that is that they're angry or frustrated. But what are you actually seeing?
Your hands are in a fist and they're in front of your face.
Absolutely spot on, Jenny. That is factually correct, right? So what we did there was make an assumption. So we've made a statement of fact that we think is true, but that's based on us looking at some behavior and interpreting it. Can you remember making a negative assumption about another person from observing their behavior?
I think we make them all the time.
I think that's a very powerful observation, Sharon. Yes.
We're constantly judging other people and making assumptions. It's what we do. We're predicting based on our own experiences.
Right, as we've just talked about. And what result does it get us?
Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes you're accurate, sometimes wildly off, right? Sometimes we see someone quietly sitting in a room and we assume they don't like us. But like they're not engaging with us, don't like us. Is that true? Who knows? So what we're talking about here is that we look at what's observable behavior, right? But under the surface, all sorts of things can be going on because it's based on beliefs, values, emotions, feelings, and thoughts. And so our assessment of behavior is not always correct, or our assessment of what we see behavior. What DISC does is it concentrates on behavior and situational behavior. So when you answer a DISC assessment, you pick an environment like a work environment or a family environment before you answer the questions, because we may show up quite differently in those different environments. What it is a scientific tool to uncover this observable behavior. What's powerful about it is that you always have control over your behavior. This is not about pigeonholing yourself or anybody else. It's not about saying, well, once you're a C or a D or I, an S, that's it. In fact, because you can choose how you behave, some of those aspects can change quite rapidly. What it does do, because we do tend to behave quite consistently, it gives us a way of looking at someone's behavior and interpreting in a way that could be useful. But what's the most powerful thing for us to do if we're making an assumption?
Would it be to question our assumptions?
Beautiful. To check in. You know, I'm seeing, so someone's in the corner of the room, it's like, is everything okay? Yeah. Or someone's looking like that, it's like, are you okay? Is there something going on for you that I should understand? How often do we do that? So I had a workshop last week in Sydney, and there was a fairly big group of the senior team, and one of the individuals was on his phone. And so I looked across just as I was explaining this, and I said, is that important? And he said, yes, because we need to make sure people get paid today. Now, I could have come out my tree and I could have said, what are you doing with a phone in, this workshop? And like, don't you understand we're here to whatever? But what I did and said was, better check, hadn't I? Is this important? So in terms of working with others, can you see that it might be useful to check that our interpretations are correct?
Yeah, Virginia, I do have one question just on something you've just said there.
Yes.
So you mentioned that when doing the DISC profile, it's important to think of a scenario. So you're either thinking about a scenario at home or you're thinking about a scenario at work, and presumably then answering the questions. Is that right? From that,
that's correct.
That context?
Yes.
And
Yes.
just to recap, and so you said that we can actually change. So Jeff mentioned earlier that he came out as a high C, but is it possible that he could be a high C in one situation, but then an I or a D in another situation?
It's possible. The straight answer is yes. The stronger that aspect of your behavior is, the less likely it is to move between situations, but it's still possible. And
Okay.
if you want to shift, then you will shift.
Right.
When we choose those things, it can be stressful to do something that is not like us, that we find strange and unusual. As you would know, with any habit that you have, if you try and break it, it's difficult, right? But over time you can change habits. Behavior is it's like habits, right? It's like a habit. It's how we've chosen to show up. It's what suits us.
Yeah. Sorry,
So-
Sharon, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can I just, yeah, so would you say, when I talk about some of the tools that I use, that, yeah, there is what I'd call a resting state. So in an environment of low stress, that you would have like a standard, you would be able to see where you fit on the DISC profile. But if you're in highly stressful situations or you're feeling uncomfortable, that may change. But I often say, think about what is a resting state for you.
So DISC is you'll see in a moment with the questions, if you haven't done them, it's like, what do I normally do? So you're right, it's what do I normally do? Mind you, if your workplace is typically stressful, what you normally do may be a stressor. Interesting enough, a full DISC profile will give you a natural style and an adaptive style. So there are things that it's interesting that it's sophisticated enough to pick up that difference. And if there is a big difference between your natural style, the thing you would really prefer to do or would normally do, and what you're choosing to do in that particular environment, say a work environment, then if there's a big difference, that can become quite stressful over time. So an example could be there was a lady who was working with her brothers in the business, and she was a very gregarious, social sort of person who was very friendly with it. And her two brothers didn't like it at all and said, no, that wastes time. You need to spend less time talking to people, and you need to pay more attention to the work that needs to be done. She was thinking of leaving the business because this was making her so unhappy. So when the DISC profiles came out, and she was a high I, which is someone who loves working with people and spending time and influencing things, she got to understand that she was different to her brothers that didn't have that profile. And they learned that using all of their skills was going to be useful for the business. There wasn't one way that was going to be right. They could blend their skills and get a better outcome. So sometimes the simplest things, the simplest identifications can be understanding our natural styles and our adaptive styles, and whether that's whether we're doing something that both suits the business and fits well with us.
Jeff, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a bit of trouble filling it in because it was a matter of rating myself, 1 to 4. And sometimes I thought, well, do I do it this way or do it that way? And I'm pretty sure I did the same thing about 2 years ago, and I end up with a different result, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But I definitely know I wasn't such a high C back then. I think it was more even. So
Yeah,
I think it depends on time.
It does. It's situational. DISC is situational, as I said. So it's situational both in terms of the environment, and then, we shift over time. So earlier in my career, I would have been a much stronger D. Well, I was very bossy. I wanted everything done the right way. I was very big into controlling things. And through the course of an executive career, I found that wasn't suiting me. It wasn't giving me the outcome I wanted. So I spent much more time looking to understand where my team was coming from, how I could work with them. I was working in big change environments, and it was no use charging ahead of the team because they weren't with you. And so I developed the I side of my profile, not deliberately. It was situational. It's like I decided that worked better, that relating to people worked better for me. And so now my I is higher than my D. And in fact, in my last CEO role, my D was dialed quite a long way down because it didn't sit well in that situation. So you're absolutely right. A couple of years ago, things can change quite a lot, and that's not uncommon. So there's no right or wrong. It's understanding what style you're using and whether it's working for you. So when I do individual assessments with people, we talk not so much about the pure result, but whether that way of behaving is working for the individual, and if not, what they would like to do differently, and then getting some support to be able to do to make that change.
Virginia, do you think at this point we could do a little bit of a recap on what the DISC profiles are, the different ones? And
yes, we jumped straight in, and for some people, absolutely. So yeah. Let's look at this. So this is, so I won't go into the background. This was developed. I love the fact it was developed observing the needs of normal people, right? So a lot of work had been done prior to this on people who had more issues in their world, but this is in their mental state. But this was looking at normal people and how all these behaviors turn up. So looking at the DISC, so can I just see a show of hands? Who's seen this before?
Oh, you might want to just share your screen with us. Am I missing something?
Is it unshared?
Yes.
Have we unshared? Okay, I'm so sorry. I thought we were going through the slides. Okay, there you are. Trap for the... There I was thinking I was showing you my slides. That didn't work, did it? Right.
That's good. We can see it.
Right. Okay. Fine. My apologies. Okay. So there's two major dimensions with DISC. The first is the vertical one, which is whether someone strongly focuses on task or strongly focuses on people. And then the horizontal dimension is whether someone's cautious, indirect, they tend to do things more slowly, more deliberately, whether they're outgoing and direct, so they tend to do things faster. And what that gives is a combination. If you're high on task and do things fast and directly, you'll be a D, like a strong D, a dominance profile. If you do things fast and directly, but the focus is mainly on people, you'd be a strong I, an influencer. If it's slower, focusing on people and being indirect, then it's a S profile. And then the focus on task and indirect being slower is compliance. We're talking about a high C then. So that says there's more emphasis on procedure. S's are more concerned with pace. So S's in our world are the team players. They're the ones that make sure everybody's okay. They don't go too fast. They make sure everybody's coming along. D's tend to be the one that takes charge and, goes out in front and assumes everybody's just going to do what they've already worked out is the answer. I's do a lot of socializing and making sure that they're connecting with people and finding out what's going on. And C's tend to keep the world in balance, and they make sure that that the processes are followed, that people are doing what they need to do to make things happen as they are meant to happen. Questions on that very brief description of the DISC profile? No? Okay.
Oh, Virginia.
Yes.
In society,
yeah.
I would almost think it's an incorrect assumption to think that of these quartiles, there's 25% of the population in each quartile. What's the general population within the DISC profile, please?
Right. We all have all of these, Angela. So they're not, you won't have a single dimension. If you filled out that little assessment, then you'll find that you've almost certainly got answers that are in each of the columns. And so it's about the blend. So when I talk about D's or I's or S or C's, that's the dominant one. So typically someone has a dominant profile, but some people can be very even across all four. And it means that if someone is even across all four, it means that they're very flexible in a situation, that they'll be able to choose which of those behaviors they exhibit or use dependent on the situation. But if you think of something like, say, for example, there's a fire, right? So an S would, somebody who's an S would normally be very inclusive and make sure everybody's feeling okay. But in that situation, they're not going to go, are we feeling okay about going through the fire escape? Are you okay with this, guys? You're not. You're going to say, come on, we need to get out now. Which of the styles is going to be most comfortable in that situation?
The D.
D.
The D, absolutely spot on. There, because they're going, hey, I've assessed it, we're out. Come on, let's go. What are we waiting for? Yeah. So situationally, we'll draw on each of these four styles because we realize that's what is going to suit that situation. What the profile gives you is what you would normally do, what you would normally choose to do. It's a great question. Okay, so what this says is that we experience the world through these four dimensions, with problems to solve because that's what D's love doing, people to communicate with because that's what I's love doing, pace of the environment, which is what S love doing, and procedures to follow, which is what C's see as necessary. Yeah. we each see the world through all of those dimensions. It's just the degree to which we emphasize them. I guess I've already covered that, so I won't go, in the interest of time, I won't go through that. I will emphasize the word need. The stronger that the stronger your score in each of these dimensions, the more it is that you need to do it, not just that you choose to do it. So if you've got very high scores, it means you will always look for that dimension to be the dominant way that you behave. So what I'd like to do now is, if you haven't completed the DISC survey, if you could do that, I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Who has completed the DISC survey, the mini-me?
Yes.
Yes. Jenny, Steve. Sorry, I can't see everybody. Jenny, can you see? I can't.
Yeah. So we've got Sharon Knighton has. Nick's put his hand up.
I have, Jenny.
Oh, Jeff's done it. And Narelle, who's on the phone. So she.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we'll give it a go anyway about the breakout room, but should be fine with Narelle being on the
I
phone.
don't think I've received that survey, Jenny.
Oh yeah, I did send it to you via email today.
Yeah, so okay. Which part of it?
It was an attachment to the email.
Yeah, I've got that attachment, but I don't see that survey anywhere.
Oh, it's we're using those words interchangeably, Narelle. So the attachment was the survey.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay.
Assessment.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Just while so the invitation is, of course, to go ahead and complete that. The link is in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to do that yet, you can download it from there. But Virginia, just briefly, there are times when people are on the opposite spectrum of the DISC profile. So there are maybe they're a C and an I, or an S and a D. Do you find that those combinations tend to be less typical?
I don't know that there is a less typical and a more typical, right? There's you see every variation of theme. I think that the thing that is worthy of note is whether someone has a very dominant single profile, or whether two are quite close together, or whether the whole lot are a lot more balanced. So that's really what I'm looking at. And as I say, really any profile is correct. It's your profile, right? The real question in understanding a profile is whether it's doing anything for you. So for example, when I left my CEO role, I started working by myself at home, and I did a DISC profile as part of a program during that period, and the influencer score was off the scale. My need to communicate people was just not being met. and so the desire to connect with people was really, really strong, and showing up as this sort of almost this way beyond a want into a need territory. And so I joined a networking event, which is how we met, Jenny. I joined a BX and found that for me, that was really important. Yeah. So it wasn't right or wrong. It just was.
Yeah.
And if I didn't do that, then I was going to probably bore the life out of anybody I'd talk to, because I'd finally got a human to engage with, right? So this is what happens with behaviors when you can't recognize them in yourself and can't see whether they're suiting how you work with other people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
So please, could you put in the chat then, if you have done if you've managed to do the profile, could you put in the chat what your dominant profile was? That would be great to know.
But Junior, how does it work? Like when I did it, it was really interesting. I was 25 on the D and the C. It was 28 on the I and 23 on the S.
Right.
And that seems, yeah. How does that work out?
It sounds from what you're saying that you've got quite a balanced profile. So it's not, you don't have really extreme. So you do have a slightly dominant one, but 28, if I heard the highest, is actually quite low. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so
that
high is like 80, 70, 80.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
I may need to work on my people. Sorry, I'm just looking at the right. So I've got I, Nick, C, right. I'm also at 9, but D is also high. I see. Right. Okay. Need to work on that. Right. True engineer. So Adrian, I think that's a show self-awareness then, right? Do we think any style is right or wrong? No. Again, so if you have a role that requires a lot of attention to detail because it's about keeping somebody safe or an environment safe or making sure a process worked, would that be a good thing to put an eye onto? No, because they're going to run off and want to talk to people, right? So I can never believe I managed to survive as many years as I did as an auditor, because that really just, that was somehow I made that balance, right? But long term, it was never going to work. So your profile may work perfectly for the job you're in right now, or the role that you're in right now. That is the key question to ask yourself when you look at these scores: is there anything about my world at the moment that I would like to get a different outcome with?
Well, that's a great question. Given that we've got quite a few people on the call who are business owners who have to be everything in their business, And also for those of us who are employed, we might find ourselves in different situations where we're having to, rely on different strengths. So there's the skill factor, there's the situation factor. Like, how do you advise people in terms of negotiating some of those? Like, where, for instance, if you are a C or an S, you might not be great at selling or marketing or connecting with people in that way. How do you, overcome that? And versus you're in an I or a D and you're not really a process person and papers are everywhere and you kind of know where it is, but it's all a bit of a mess.
Have you looked at my desk? Anyway, so first of all, if you can surround yourself, or you can balance the skills that you have with people or help in the other areas. So for example, I find it difficult to do detailed process stuff. I find it, I can do it, but I get frustrated by it quite quickly. So to the extent that I spend money on people, bringing people into my business, not as employees, but as contractors, I'm looking for people who do that, because it balances out my strengths and areas where I'm less strong, right? And so I'd say, as a business owner, it's looking at what you prefer to do and what's not getting done, or what's really frustrating you, and seeing if you can find some balance to that, because you'll enjoy your role more and you'll get more leverage that way. If you force yourself to do the things you hate, then it all gets too hard, and it's like using an underdeveloped muscle. It will just tire really quickly. Yes. And there's every chance that you're not going to develop that muscle if you don't like it. Yeah. You might persevere at it, but over time, I encourage you to look for another way to do the stuff that you really don't enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you.
And no, it's right. I'd also say pick one or two aspects. Don't try and shift everything. So one of the things that I did in my last profile was, okay, so I can use my I, which is my desire to work with people, to find people who can help me with my C. Yeah, so you can use the things that you have strengths in to find a way of balancing out the ones that you don't.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So did you want us to put everybody in a breakout room?
No, I think given the time right now, there was a lot of questions around different styles. Whoopsie daisy. Right. There were a lot of questions, so I will move on to that, and please put your hand up or just come off mute if you've got questions as we go through. Are you okay with that, Jenny?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So just keeping in mind, I also want to make sure we answer Narelle's question there about dealing with difficult people, because we're all encountering that on a,
Okay. And that's what I'm pretty much trying to move on to. So we'll see if we can do that. Right. So often while there's not a monopoly on difficult people, you will find the people who are completely different to you to be more difficult than the ones that are like you, right? Yeah, it makes sense. One of the examples I give is that last year I went on holiday with my partner. We'd been going out for about a year then, and every time I'd traveled before, I was in work mode. I'm a high I and a high D, so I do things fast. I'm in work mode. We got off the plane in Heathrow. We get on the tickets, buy the tickets, get on the Heathrow Express, or on the tube. We're carrying luggage with golf clubs and all sorts of things. And my poor partner, after half an hour of this, said to me, "Could we pause?" and he's an S and C, does everything much more deliberately, much more slowly. When he traveled for fun. He didn't travel for work, so there was no need to be fast or do things efficiently, right? So we were like two polar opposites. But that conversation, that experience, that conversation allowed us to look at how we were dealing with each other or how we were working, and have the conversations that allowed us to not have a difficult conversation, right? To not see the other person as difficult because they weren't like us. So D's, because they like dominating and they like problem solving, can often be the individuals that people struggle to deal with if they're not a D. After doing one of these sessions, I had some feedback from a guy that said, I had the best meeting with this client I ever had once I worked out he was a D, and I just got straight to the point, 3 actions, we just got straight to it, no chit chat, whatever. He goes, best meeting. So it was really about understanding someone's preferences and then working with their preferences. So this is what you see for D. This is what you see when someone has a high D. They want to be in control. They hate being taken advantage. They want to get tasked on, and they're hard. And then with I, they will hate the idea of losing social approval. So don't ever put them in a situation where they're going to be awkward. They will be interactive. They'll be optimistic. They'll come from high energy and drive. They'll look for people to influence. Steadiness is much more about a controlled, calm environment, keeping the pace steady. As I say, they're the team player. They really don't want to lose security. They want to support others through good systems, and they only act after observing the situation. They're not ones who just make an instant decision. And then C's will look for, where's the rules, where's the procedures, where's the certainty here. They're wanting correct behavior. Lack of quality is a really bad thing for them. They want the task done correctly and they want quality. Yes. So as we've talked before, the way you can pick up these dominant styles is by looking for the speed they're doing things, whether they're talking about task or people. Yeah. So you can get a bit of a picture as to whether someone is one of these dominantly profile, and then respond. Jeff, you got a question?
Yes, had some other profile done years ago, and it came up that I am somebody that does what I think is right, and I don't do it to get people to like me. It doesn't matter to me whether they like me or not. It's just a matter of I do what I think is right and leave it at that. Now, would that coincide with a high C?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It does, because if you think about it, you're focusing on task and you're doing it deliberately to make sure it's done right. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I's will just go, oh, that looks right, looks about right, off we go. Everybody seems found that was all right. So whereas a C will go, hold on a second, hold on. Did we go through what we needed to go through? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sharon.
Hi, so I haven't done the survey, so apologies for that. But looking through your slides, I am most definitely an S. Absolutely. That is my comfort zone. That's where I operate best. I'm calm. I need to have everything in place. I need to be organized. Then I have 2 crazy kids. I have an ex-husband. I have a business that I'm trying to build, and it all goes mental all at the same time. And I'm outside of my comfort zone. But then I have to be a D, especially, very in control. I'm very like, okay, we've got to do it now. It has to be done now. But it isn't me. And so I think my question is, how do you slip from one to another more comfortably than I do, to be fair? Because I feel very uncomfortable in those situations, but I know that I have to do that. Otherwise, nobody would get out of the house in the morning, and no one have any food on their plate. But yeah, so I think that's my question. How do you go from one to the other much more comfortably? I understand that you said that we have a little bit of everybody, but I haven't done the survey, but I am definitely an S. I felt happy when that S come up. I was like, oh, I fit into a category. This is lovely.
So, yeah. So I think to answer your question, we do what needs, it's what you're saying is I do what needs to be done. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We do what needs to be done. What I would say, and this would be something I would work with, individual clients on if I was working in a team environment. It's like, what could we do for an S? What kind of systems and processes can you put in place that you've got agreement to from the people in your life, so you don't have to use your D as much? Because I don't know I'm ever going to, I don't know that we're ever going to aspire for you to suddenly go, I'm happy being a raving D at this point. It's like, no, I'm not happy being that. I would be much happier if we had the right systems and process, and use your people skills to get the buy-in to say, okay, what's the reward system that's going to mean that people are going to listen to the process I put in place. Yeah.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you. That's really good.
Okay. And this is a great example of using your strengths to work to get an outcome instead of trying to be someone else.
Yeah. So working with, which is the point of your talk, as opposed to just against. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
That's exactly right. And you can hear that you can then do that with other people. It's like, okay, how can I get that person to do what I want? Okay, what are their strengths? What do they lean into? How do I use that? How do I work with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And my pleasure. 2, you have your hand up. I think you're on mute.
If you're sitting in an I category, but you want a little bit more of the other qualities, do you actually try to work towards the other qualities that you want to improve, or do you just focus on one particular category, such as I or S or C? So say, for example, if I was sitting in an I and a steady, an S, and I actually want to improve and move on to the I, is it possible that we can work towards going more into the I than stay into the S?
So this is, what we're doing today is we're just looking at the framework and the various aspects of it. When I work with individuals, it's always possible. It's like, what are the first steps to take to move to that? There is a part of the DISC report which is called the word sketch, and it takes every dimension and takes it from a level 1 to a level 6, which is the least to the most, and it has words at each stage, and you can look at those words and say, okay, do I want to be more assertive? Do I want to be more gregarious? Do I want to be, and it's like, if I want to be that, if that's what I want to be, and you would never recommend you embark on too big a stretch, but if that's what I want to be, what are the things I can practice to start to develop that attribute?
Right.
Is that, yeah? So like I said, DISC is a tool, it's not an answer. Yeah. So DISC can highlight some ways of doing it, but the shift comes from focusing on what you want to change and usually getting some support to deliver on that change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So with a few minutes left, I think what I'm going to do with Jenny is I'm very happy to send you out this pack. And what you will see in this pack, as I'm showing you here, is there are some slides in here which says, what do you do when you communicate with a high D? What do you do when you're communicating with a high I, and S and C? Yeah. So, and we've got a few C's in this group, so they probably relate to this. If you're communicating with a high C, prepare your information in advance, be accurate, give a lot of detail, don't appear disorganized, talk about just what the matter in hand, and don't be casual or loud, right? There is a little cheat sheet there that you can print out, which you can put in front of you so that you can see the different styles and choose how you respond. And then there's a few slides on how do you shift your style. So how do you come across as more accommodating and able to relate to others? So if we look at we'll go to high I, you know, for one of the things I used to practice when I went into sales was I'd go into a client meeting and I would promise myself I wouldn't talk for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I had to just ask questions. Don't laugh. It was a practice, right? Guess what? It's okay. It worked. It suited the outcomes I got from doing that served me. Yeah. So I dialed down my I in those situations. So that's the sort of thing that you can do. With high S's, high C's, interesting enough. Be willing to disagree. It's interesting. Most C's go, oh, I don't want to disagree with anybody. I don't like sticking my. However, there's a lot of value that C's normally have in terms of what they understand about what's going on that doesn't get shared because they won't disagree and engage in a conversation. So that would be a skill to lean into. This is ways you can respond to situations to bring out the best in others. The name of the game is know your own style and understand how others see you. Be then aware of the needs of others and adapt in the situation as much as you can so that you find that common ground with the other person or the team. Very quickly, because I'm sure we're about to finish up, what is one action you're going to take out of today's session that you're prepared to share? You can drop it if you can drop it in the chat if you don't like talking out loud, but it'd be nice to hear.
I'm going to do my mini survey and start to understand myself a little bit more and try to take some actions that seems that might be my weakness.
Great. And it's interesting how often people say to me, oh, what's my weaknesses? I work on your strengths. Yeah. Work on your strengths. All of us benefit so much more by working on our strengths and using our strengths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else prepared to share?
Yeah, you mentioned about getting Jenny to send out something. And one of the things I'd like to do is go through that and actually understand how it is best to talk to others. I'm a high C, so how can I talk to a D and all this type of thing?
Beautiful.
I want to understand that more.
It's great. Well, I'll send out this pack, yeah, and so you'll there's lots of tips in here.
Thank you.
One of the things is that I'm a high D because I need to be with my clients because it relates to quality and procedures and stuff, but I'm lousy at that myself. So at the point that you raised about outsourcing, certain things that you did were very smart and something I'm going through at the moment. So the things I'm not good at and I dislike doing, I just have to effectively pay somebody else to do it. It's as simple as that.
That's a fabulous insight, Steve, and I wish every success. I think it'll work a lot better. You'll be a lot less frustrated, right? We meant to. I firmly believe we're meant to play to our strengths, and things work out a whole lot better. So I'll leave the rest of you. If you want to find out more from I'll send this pack anyway, but if you want to find out more, this is an ebook that I wrote based on some questions that I had from a series of workshops that I did, and it's an ebook and it's free to you with my compliments. It's got a few little tiny war stories in there, which hopefully make it a little bit more interesting than just the straight facts around DISC. And other than that, I very much appreciate your time, and I hope there's some, it's a very big area. We've just scraped the surface, and I hope you've got something out of today that you can work with that will benefit your working world.
Thank you, Virginia. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And thanks everyone for joining tonight. If you'd like to connect with Virginia, we're going to drop in some details in the chat so that that's accessible for you. If you'd like to save the chat, then make sure you do that before you exit, and you just do that by clicking on the three buttons at the bottom, or three dots at the bottom of the chat box there, and that will help you save the chat. We are here every month, the last Monday of every month, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And if there's a topic that you would like us to cover, by all means, get in touch with me and I'll see if I can find an expert to cover that. If you haven't already joined the She Leadership YouTube channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Hoping my trusty sidekick here is going to put the link for that in the chat also. You can use that link to obviously be notified of any webinars that you might have missed, and also catch up on the latest that's going on in the She Leadership world. Once again, thanks everybody for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again in, well, next month.
Good work, Jenny.
Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.